Hello again everyone from Tokyo, Japan, and welcome back to Japan Vintage Camera. Today I'm going to be sharing yet another really odd and unusual Japanese camera, and that is the Ricoh Jet. If you're interested in purchasing this Ricoh Jet or another vintage Japanese camera, I sell these in my Etsy and eBay stores. Please check the description below the video for links to my stores. So getting back to the Ricoh Jet, this camera was introduced in 1959 and it was the last of the trigger-wind Ricoh 35 rangefinder cameras. This is a very different camera from the earlier trigger-wind cameras. Following this model, Ricoh introduced a more conventional rangefinder camera, which was called the Ricoh 300, which was quite popular. But what is odd about the Ricoh Jet is that it's kind of a mix between the Ricoh 300 and the earlier Ricoh 35 cameras. The bottom half of the camera is pretty much the same as our early Ricoh 35, whereas the top, which is higher than the other Ricoh 35s, they happen to squeeze in the rangefinder and viewfinder system from the Ricoh 300. So that kind of gives you the best of both worlds, the trigger winding action and the reliable design of the Ricoh 35 with the much improved rangefinder system which was found on the later cameras. Unfortunately, not a lot of these cameras were made. I wonder if this was just getting rid of the old Ricoh 35 parts they had and an experiment in using the new rangefinder system, but whatever the reason, not a lot of these cameras were made. Here in Japan, I see maybe one of these each month, and in most cases they're in really bad condition. People seem to, when they bought these cameras, to really use them, and they usually show a lot of wear and a few dents and scratches and things like that. This one's in remarkably nice shape compared to the ones I usually see. It's not really difficult to use one of these cameras. I'll run over the features and functions and such. And of course we have the film rewind knob on the top. And we have a hot shoe for the flash. Ricoh was the first company to widely install hot shoes in their cameras at a time when most other companies required just a regular flash gun and to plug into the flash sink somewhere else on the camera. Here we have the shutter release button, and you can use a cable release on this, but it requires a Ricoh adapter, and I very seldom come across the adapters, though they do come up from time to time. And here we have the film counter window. You'll notice this little screw here on the top of the top cover. This covers the adjusting screw for the vertical alignment of the rangefinder. You remove this screw, and kind of deep down underneath is a very small screw which you turn left or right to raise or lower the vertical adjustment. On the hot shoe here, the screw on the left side here, there are two screws in here, a long one and a short one. If you remove the short screw, below that is the access for the horizontal adjustment. If you take out the screw and it's like more than 10 millimeters long, that's the wrong one. If the screw over the access hole is only about maybe 4 or 5 millimeters long. Moving to the back of the camera, we have the viewfinder window, and we have the release here, which allows you to rewind the film. Moving to the front of the camera, I mentioned before that this is pointed out before the PC sync for the flash. We have a really large viewfinder rangefinder window system here, and unlike many of the other Ricoh rangefinder cameras, especially the 35s, the Jet featured parallax correction, which made it easier to get a better, to compose your subject better. The important controls are on the lens, and we have these two wings here. These are the focus tabs, which allow you to focus the camera in and out. And we have behind that a depth of field scale, which you can use to guess the depth of field. In front of that we have the ring, which adjusts the aperture. And in the middle here we have the window, which shows the aperture setting which you've selected. And in front of that is the shutter speed adjusting dial. And behind the shutter speed numbers we have red numbers, and these are light value numbers. So if you're using a handheld meter, or you don't have a meter but you're using a light meter app on your phone, you can use the light value system in order to make adjustments to the camera. You simply adjust there's a red arrow here on the aperture, and you turn this up and down to the different light value depending on what the meter recommends. And you can turn the shutter speed and aperture lever together by turning the shutter speed ring. You can't do it by turning the aperture ring by itself. And that kind of simplifies the operation. You can use more or this way you only have to make one setting if you are trying to adjust for a different light value. You just use whichever one that the light meter recommends, and you can adjust the aperture one way or the other. In front of that we have a selector ring for the flash sync speed and manual setting, and also for the self timer. And as you can see, the self timer in this works. It's the V setting, the X setting is for the flash sync, and M setting is for the normal manual control of the shutter. The Ricoh Jet features shutter speeds from 1 second to 1/500th of a second, and the shutters in these are really quite accurate. A lot of the cameras which I come across usually require some kind of work to the shutter to keep it going. And though the Ricoh features the same shutter which is used in a number of other cameras, say Kosa shutter, for whatever reason it seems to work better in the Ricoh cameras. I think it's just the design of the controls around the outside protect it better. A weakness that these cameras have is a seized focus helicoid. This is a common problem in all the Ricoh 35 trigger wind cameras. Unfortunately, it's kind of an easy fix. For many cameras, a stuck focus helicoid is either, it makes the camera into a paperweight, or it's too expensive to fix. For the Ricoh 35, to fix it, we'll go to the bottom of the camera here, and you have to remove the bottom and back of the cover, of the camera completely to change film, and also to access the inside of the camera. By turning the two dials in the red direction to the O symbol, you can pull this off. And inside the back here, it's hard to see here, but around the shutter and focusing assembly, there's kind of a gap. And if you look very closely inside, you can see a brass ring around the inside. If you use a syringe and apply some thin oil to this ring, and then put a few drops of naphtha or lighter fluid or even paint thinner on that, and then just set the camera like this overnight. And then the next day, just give the focusing ring a good twist, and that usually frees it up, and then you can start focusing the camera again. Loading the film is quite easy. You set your film canister here, pull out the film lead, roll it across the film winding mechanism, and put it into the spool. And this will allow you, there's a thumb wheel here which allows you to get the film nice and flat. And replace the rear cover. Don't slide it up from the bottom as you might catch the film. Place it down near the top, press it down, and then turn the locking rings. And then wind the camera. I should turn off the self-timer. But wind the camera until the number 1 lines up in the frame counter window, and the camera is good to go. Alright, and that's all there is to it. Anyway, that's my video about the Ricoh Jet rangefinder camera. I'll be listing this on my Etsy and eBay stores shortly, so if you're interested in it, please go and take a look. If you like the video, please like it, and if you want to see more videos about Japanese cameras, please subscribe. Thanks a lot for watching, and hope you watch again soon.